Happy Halloween. Matt Barrie here on a Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Cheers. It is the show you didn't know you needed till you had it. We sit here, we laugh, we cry, we hug, we scream. We celebrate the sport that is college football over Bloody Marys each and every Sunday, the Week 9 version. Appreciate all of you that have been on this journey with me so far. Before we get into the college football discussion, as always, want to break down the Bloody Mary. Because it's Halloween weekend, I've made this one extra spicy. I've got a couple of pepperoncinis in there. I've got a little extra sriracha and a spicy Bloody Mary sauce. But the key today is I've gone 2 slices of bacon, and I'm using it as the stir, right? I'm not even using a straw or a toothpick. The bacon is acting as my stir utensil today. So that's what's in the Bloody Mary cup as we recap a busy Week 9 in college football. So I'll just get out in front of where we are. Paul Feinbaum, as we always do on the Sunday morning recap, we get into Tennessee, we get into Georgia, we get into the scuffle with Michigan and Michigan State. So after you watch Sunday Bloody Sunday, if you want to get in on that conversation, you can find us here on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel. What we did not discuss, Ohio State, Penn State, Buckeyes win 44-31. When you look at the final score, it was a pull-away situation from the Buckeyes. This thing was close pretty much throughout the entire game until a stretch in the third quarter. Travion Henderson, he had that 41-yard touchdown, which, by the way, going into that run, the Buckeyes only had 37 yards rushing. They got 41 in one run and really started to assert their dominance. JTT, the Ohio State defensive player, Tui Maloau is his name. JT Tui Maloau had an absolute spectacular performance. He had a pick 6. He deflected passes. He had sacks, tackles for loss. He was a one-man Ohio State football demolition crew. It was one of the great performances. I was texting with an Ohio State fan this morning that they were really trying to put into perspective how good JTT was. And what I loved about this from Ohio State, there was a couple of things I liked about this. We know the first college football playoff rankings are coming out Tuesday. And so there'll be a lot of conversation about where the Buckeyes should be ranked. Should they be ranked number 1 ahead of Tennessee? Should Tennessee be ranked? It doesn't matter because they're going to play Michigan. It's going to handle itself. But what I think the win against Penn State did on Saturday, we didn't really know who the Buckeyes were big picture. We knew they had an explosive offense, but they really hadn't played anybody. There hadn't been a game yet where they had shown themselves to dominate an opponent that, at least skill-wise and talent-wise, was close to being on par with them. They did that with Penn State. But getting back to JTT for a minute, listen, we know C.J. Stroud, Travion Henderson, Marvin Harrison Jr. We know the offensive guys. What we didn't know is how good this Jim Knowles defense could be in a big game situation. We saw it yesterday. I know they gave up 31 points, and I know there was some poor tackling that led to the Parker Washington touchdown to get Penn State on the board. But if you're a committee member or you're a college football fan and you're looking big picture, this Ohio State team is one to take seriously, because it appears now the one thing that's been missing for Ohio State the past couple of years has been a defense that you could rely on in a big-time situation. With that historic performance yesterday with JTT and the rest of that defense, I would tell you this. If you look at complete team now, you could argue, because I still think Tennessee has a little bit of a deficiency on defense. We'll find out more about them with the points they gave up against Alabama. We'll find out more about them against Georgia. But with the offense that Ohio State has, pair that with the defense, look, you'd have no arguments for me if the Buckeyes were the number 1 team in the country come Tuesday, because, again, it's going to play itself out. But what a big win for Ryan Day and that team, 44-31 over Penn State. TCU, cheers to the Hypno-Toad and Sonny Dykes. Had Sonny on SportsCenter with me this week. We had some fun with that. But they had every bit of a situation that looked like they could go on the road, early kickoff, Morgantown, and an explosive team against West Virginia. All they did was battle back and forth. West Virginia tied this a couple of times, and every time it got close, Max Duggan again stepped up. And this Big 12, I say it every week if you watch this, based on what happened with TCU on the road at West Virginia and the absolute embarrassment that Kansas State put on Oklahoma State with a backup quarterback and Will Howard. Cheers, Will Howard, for taking advantage of your opportunity. That offense looks completely different than it does with Adrian Martinez. Between TCU in Kansas State, when you look at the Horned Frogs schedule and what they have coming the rest of the way, they've got Texas Tech at home. All right. You go to Fort Worth. Texas Tech will fight you. Joey McGuire, good first year. I mean, they'll mess with you, but skill-wise, TCU's a better team. The rest of their schedule, they go to Texas on November 12th. That's going to be a tough one. They go to Baylor on November 19th. They have back-to-back games at Texas, at Baylor. Keep an eye on this TCU team because they went through a stretch. They won 4 games in a row against ranked opponents. That alone, I think, based on being undefeated in 4 ranked matchups, 4 ranked wins in a row, I would love to see them open up in the top 4. I don't know that the committee will do it, but when you look at resume and things that they've just done this season, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better resume against 4 ranked wins and an 8-0 start. So TCU continues to be a remarkable story in the first year there with Max Duggan. Wasn't even the starting quarterback to begin the year, and now he's the guy. So TCU, Horned Frogs, Hypno-Toad, go get yours on Halloween weekend. I touched on Kansas State, 48-0. 48-0 over a top 10 team. There are so many superlatives that this one dealt with that Kansas State, its first shutout loss. First time Oklahoma State's been shut out since 2009. Now, as you've known, and for those of you who watch Sunday Bloody Sunday, I'm not a math whiz, but 13 years is a long time since you've been shut out. And this is Kansas State. This isn't a historically good defense. And Oklahoma State trots out Spencer Sanders and has really good offense. That, to me, was one of the most surprising outcomes on Saturday. That, along with Louisville and Wake Forest. We were sitting there watching the game in studio. It was me, Joey Galloway, Dan Mullen on Saturday. And we're kind of sitting there. We've got the 8-pack of games, 8 monitors. We've got 10 games going at once. We've got the 8-pack, a couple of other screens. And we just keep looking at Louisville, Wake Forest, and we're like, well, what's going on? Like, that's a turnover. Grabs our attention. Look again. Well, Sam Hartman just turned the ball over. He just fumbled again. And then it kept going. And then we finally asked research. We're like, how many turnovers does Wake Forest have? Like, we've got 3. Oh, wow, that's a lot. In the third quarter. And it kept going. And it kept going. Wake Forest turned the ball over 6 times in the third quarter alone. 6. They had 8 turnovers overall, all 8 of them in the second half. That, to me, when you look at the college football landscape on a Saturday in the final weekend of October, that Sam Hartman and Wake Forest, one of the most explosive offenses in the country, that they turned it over, let's call it 4 times, was surprising. That they did it 6 times in a quarter, 8 times in a half was absolutely stunning. Cheers to the Louisville defense, who got my helmet sticker on College Football Final, for turning that ball over so many times. 48-21. It's kind of the things that annoys people with Satterfield and Louisville at this point, because you know they've got it in them. You just don't know when it's going to show up. It sure showed up on Saturday, 48-21, the final over Wake Forest. A couple of other games I want to touch on the field. Michigan does what they do. They run the ball and they play defense. They kick field goals. I don't think that's going to be good enough to beat Ohio State. They win 29-7. We get into the fight. They win the Paul Bunyan Trophy. Feinbaum and I get into the after-field embarrassment for Michigan State in a fight in the tunnel. If you want to hear our thoughts on that, that posts on the Sunday recap. The game that I told a lot of people to watch because I thought it could get interesting was North Carolina Pitt. I'm going to say this right now about North Carolina. Now, they lost to Notre Dame, which everyone typically, unless you're one of the top tier teams that's undefeated, typically as a loss you look back on, you're like, damn, I wish we didn't have that loss. That's North Carolina with Notre Dame. But they are 7-1 overall. They are in clear control of the Coastal Division in the ACC. If you're not paying attention what Mack Brown has done for this team this year, in my estimation, don't give Dabo ACC Coach of the Year. Same as it ever was. Fine. It's Clemson. They're a brand. Dino Babers, you could argue, even though they got pretty embarrassed yesterday against Notre Dame. You could also argue Mike Elko at Duke, who's got Duke 5-3, 2-2, just behind North Carolina, 2 games behind North Carolina. But basically what I'm getting at is the job Mack Brown has done. There were so many squabbles last year about Mack and where this thing's headed. And as he lost it, Sam Howell's gone. What are they going to do? North Carolina fell off the planet after a great couple of years. If you're not paying attention to Drake Maye and what this Tar Heels offense is doing, then you are missing out. That kid threw for 5 touchdowns yesterday in their win over Pittsburgh. Israel Abanikanda for the Panthers had a remarkable performance, as he typically does. But I'm here to tell you, Mack Brown, to me, other than Mike Elko, runaway ACC Coach of the Year. Drake Maye, he's going to be the player. I want to. What's today's date? It's the 30th, October 30th, 2022. I'm going to say this on the YouTube channel so we have it and it'll live in perpetuity. Mark it down. When he is ready, when you can start talking about him in this conversation, the NFL scouts will salivate over Drake Maye to the point he will start showing up as a number 1 pick on draft boards. He will also be considered one of those players that they call a generational quarterback prospect. Mark it down. I'm telling you, the NFL scouts love this kid. He's only a freshman. Now he's a redshirt freshman and he'd been there for a year. But the way that he has processed the game so quickly, winning that starting job this year to where North Carolina is, here's their schedule the rest of the way. Virginia, they're at Virginia. Unless something cataclysmic happened, they're winning that game. They have Wake Forest. Now, that's the one. From me, that's the swing game for Carolina down the stretch, because I know Wake Forest and Sam Hartman struggled on Saturday, but I'm telling you, the defense, they've gotten better under Gene Chizik as the season's gone on. That's kind of the swing game for them. They have Georgia Tech, lock that one in. And then they have the annual rivalry game against NC State the Friday after Thanksgiving. North Carolina has a real opportunity now to get back into this conversation for the ACC championship game against Clemson. And then if you're talking about a 1-loss North Carolina team, relative big picture to where everything else is, look, I'm not a North Carolina super fan, as it may sound like this morning. I'm just telling you, I called their game week 0 when they were trying to figure this thing out this year. Post Sam Howell, people didn't know what the Tar Heels would do. This is a really, really good story if you're not paying attention. Just go watch North Carolina play football, and you'll be happy you did. So cheers to Drake Maye and the Tar Heels, Mack Brown, everybody out there in Chapel Hill. A couple of other things before we get you out of here on a Halloween weekend. By the way, how was everyone's Halloween Saturday? Watching games throughout the day. Let's see. So you go 10 games times 3 windows, 30 games roughly throughout the course of a Saturday. Halloween weekend's always my favorite because you see all the college students dressed up. And it's absolutely hilarious why everyone and how everyone dresses up. These college kids, typically they've probably done a little pre-gaming before, so the costumes tend to get a little bit better. But the one thing I couldn't figure out, and maybe you, the YouTube viewer, you guys are never shy with your comments anyway, but if you want to hop in the comment section and help me out on this one, why is dressing up as a banana trendy? When did that start? Because I would bet conservatively 40% of the costumes that we saw on TV yesterday were a group of people dressed as bananas. Is it because it's easy? Is there some inside thing with college kids that I'm just not hip to at 43 anymore? Somebody help me out. The banana costume, I find it lazy. Get creative. Go create an original costume. Don't get these costumes out of a bag and show up as a banana or a hot dog. You're better than that. You're a college student. You have nothing else to do but party and come up with a Halloween costume. Do better. Sorry, that was my Halloween rant. But USC, Pac-12, 45-37 over Arizona. UCLA in the nightcap, 38-13 over Stanford. And then there's Oregon, 42-24 over Cal. I talk about this with the Big 12 all the time, how it's going to be entertaining. I'm going to do the same exact thing with the Pac-12 because now as you look at them, Oregon 5-0 in conference overall, USC 5-1 in conference overall, UCLA 4-1, Utah 4-1. Here's the best part that the Pac-12 has going for it. Part 1, Oregon, USC, UCLA, Utah, they're all ranked 8th, 10th, 12th, 14th, respectively. So you've got 4 teams in the top 15, guaranteed now with the upsets that happened on Saturday with Wake Forest and Oklahoma State. UCLA is going to find themselves in the top 10. USC came in ranked 10th with Wake Forest. They will move into the top 10. So you're going to have 3 top 10 teams. You're going to have Utah just on the outside looking in. Pac-12 is not dead, people. It is not dead when it comes to a college football playoff spot. There will be an opportunity with the schedule that's left. Remember, there aren't divisions. It's a round-robin format. Best 2 teams, best 2 records playing the Pac-12 championship. Pardon me. But when you look at Oregon's schedule the rest of the way, at Colorado Saturday, win, lock that in. Washington, always tough because those 2 programs don't like each other. That's a tough one, November 12th. Then you've got the big one with Utah. If Oregon can win out, and I know people are scarred by that Georgia loss, as they should be, because it was not good. I don't know that anyone would look at that and be like, well, we want to see that game again. Oregon's a completely different team. Between what Oregon has on their schedule and what USC has on their schedule, Cal, lock it up, win. Colorado, lock it up, win. You've got USC, UCLA, November 19th. That weekend is a tipping point for the Pac-12. If one of these teams, be it UCLA or Oregon, even USC, if they can find a way to navigate through the conference championship game with 1 loss and some of the chaos around them continues to happen, I could see the Pac-12 really having an opportunity to get a team in a playoff. But week 9, kind of the table setter. It was the Halloween weekend. It was the get weird, dress up, have fun. We didn't see many things in the way of chaos, minus the Wake Forest and Oklahoma State stuff that I touched on. That this is genuinely a table setter. I say it all the time. Anybody who watches college football and loves the sport like we do, October, September, you get out there. Hey, we're out here. College football starting. Your team's out there. Who's good? Who's bad? Who's a good story? We saw some good stories fade already. Fine. October, conference starts. You get to know who are the contenders, who are the pretenders. That's October. Here's November. It's the month you remember in college football, because now going down the stretch, it starts this week with Auburn, or it starts this week with Alabama, LSU, and Tennessee, Georgia. This is the month, this is the week that everyone will start looking at the true contenders in college football. The first rankings come out Tuesday. We're getting down to the rivalry games, the ranked games. I just gave you some of the Pac-12 games. We give you some of the Big Ten games that are on the way. Buckle up for the best month in college football. Is it sad that it's already week 10? Sure. Can't do anything about that. The only thing that we can do now is buckle up for a stretch run, because I'm here to tell you, based on what we've seen through weeks 1 through 9, weeks 10 through 13 and championship weekend, I believe are going to provide us one of the more historic finishes we've ever seen to a college football season. And I've been one of those that has said, hey, let's be careful with playoff expansion, because how many years do 8 teams really deserve a shot at the national championship? This year, this season, when we look at the rankings come Tuesday, and we look at how they progress throughout the final month of the season, this is the season where we're going to look and see, yep, that's why we need that's why we need college football playoff expansion. Because I believe the parity this year, you could argue 6 to 8 teams could win a national championship. And that's what we have in store for us the rest of the way. So enjoy it. Cheers to you, the college football fan. If you're hungover from your Halloween party the night before, good. Drink one of these. It'll set you right. It always does. College kids, get better. No more bananas next year. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I better than a banana? The answer typically has to be yes. So that'll do it for Sunday Bloody Sunday on a week 9. I hope everyone enjoyed their college football Saturday. I hope everyone enjoyed their Halloween. And let's embark on this November journey together. It's going to be fun. It's going to be memorable. And I can't wait to share it with you here on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel. Cheers.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.